Okay, this is day 194, Awan Brotherhood. I think you're going to see this period of basically the Afghan war is going to be divided into two parts. And Imran comes in about 2004, but I think Soraya Begum comes in before that, like 1999. I think the Tahir Javid as well is starting to get set up in 1999. Gulen gets set up in 1999. And I think this is Hillary setting all this up in 1998, 99 for her run for the White House. And Bill's term's over. He's had 2 terms. He can't run again. But she's building, just like in Arkansas she did, Mina, she's building the system. So I'm going to put Soraya Begum's picture in here. I believe she's going to come in 2001. Javid certainly was developed in 1999 for this whole drug thing. And then Gulen is going to be, I'll just use this guy as a placeholder for Gulen for the English teachers to run that drug business. Now, I think the business is fairly benign in terms of trying to sell kind of the generics as a replacement for the drugs. I don't think you can get into the half-strength drugs and the quarter-strength drugs until later. But a real change happens right at 2011, where the New Dawn Corporation happens. And I believe that's because Steve Feinberg bought DynCorp. And Steve Feinberg, with the Cerebus Capital and the three-headed dog and the just much more vicious kind of outlook, carnivorous outlook, really changes DynCorp, and he adds back in that component from Kosovo that he developed with Hillary before, which is the organ harvesting piece, and also which is the really strong opiate targeting with the illegal drugs in the inner cities. So that's the piece I think Steve Feinberg adds. That's my overall arching structure. Again, even if this email here about tragic news and this person's not related to the drug business at all, this certainly tells the story of Pakistan since 2001 to 2016. The people of Pakistan, the 4 different provinces, are dominated by the Punjab folks and the military police, specifically in Lahore, and more specifically, the military police supported ISI supported military police. So this guy is from Karachi, the province just below. He's a human rights activist, and he's tortured for a year and a half to get his contacts, and then he's tortured for another 9 months a couple years later for his contacts, and then murdered. So now, interestingly enough, Steve Mull, used to work, I think all the way back, he negotiated overflights through Russian airspace when Russians controlled Afghanistan for humanitarian reasons or whatever, but that's how far back Steve Mull goes, I believe. Steve Mull also is the guy who's in charge of implementing the Iran nuclear deal. So if you are the guy implementing the Iran nuclear deal, you're in control of the rat line. So if you have somebody from Congo, and then somebody on here that speaks the languages spoken in Congo, she's a long time, I don't know if it's Wendy Sherman or not. But anyway, one of these State Department folks is an expert Congolese person. The first thing that came to my mind is, what is a Congolese person doing on this email list? And the first thing I thought of was, well, it's the uranium capital of the world, and he would be in charge of how it's administered. But I'm not going to go there today. That's just a metadata quick snap analysis. I am going to talk about Wiener, though, and his BlackBerry obsession. The NSA did not do these laptops for Biden and Obama. These were customized, stripped down, so somebody had to do that customized work. Was it Nanoset Technologies is the key question. I think it was. He's going to have a serial number associated with his BlackBerry. So is Biden, so is Newland. There's a special form that needs to be signed by the Secretary of State, and that is going to be trackable or traceable to those BlackBerries, and I believe they should be FOIA-able. So there's no national security there now, and Obama's no longer president. So to prove that, there's 2 State Department documents, there's 2 State Department emails I'll refer to. This is the key person from Hillary's camp, not Obama's camp. This is Donald Reed. And Donald Reed is the one saying, we got to have a solution for the POTUS. We got to have a solution for the POTUS. But in actual fact, the push was coming from Hillary all along to make sure they could put that stripped down BlackBerry in Obama's hands. Why? Because if Obama goes into a SCIF and uses a secure terminal, they're not going to be able to see it. NSA has locked it down. The only way they're going to be able to spy on Obama is put in his hands right here, put in that stripped down BlackBerry that's doped by the Awan brothers. And in the second email on the 18th here, I put it in the links below. I didn't put a copy, but it talks about why can't she just go into the secure terminal in the SCIF? Why does she need a BlackBerry in the SCIF? You can't take a BlackBerry in the SCIF. And so you have this big argument about BlackBerries in the SCIF. And then there's a famous line. This is called the "Shut Up and Go Color" email. He says, "Well, they just keep on telling us to shut up and go color." So there's a real push by the Clinton people for this secure BlackBerry, which it isn't. I think you're also going to see disinfo about Anthony Weiner all along the way. If you're running a rat line and you're doing economic espionage, you don't want people to know that. You want people to be making fun of his douchiness. So you got his brother here talking about his douchiness and all the sexting and so forth, and to get them off the idea that he's actually doing an economic espionage program. Now, I think you're going to find a connection to Michael Weiner, Michael L. Weiner, the hedge fund guy in New York, between Jason and Anthony Weiner. This is Jason, his brother. So, Nanoset Technologies, New Dawn Corporation, I really do think this is a watershed moment, 2011, July 29th, 2011. It's basically from the time Steve Feinberg takes over in late 2009 from DynCorp to get all the negotiations right, and documents even say this, about putting this rat line in place. And this is where I think, Steve Feinberg makes the decision to target U.S. veterans. And I think this is where this whole group makes that decision. 8 days later, after we have this New Dawn Corporation, we have these 22 Navy SEALs killed. And again, they choose a name of a New Dawn Corporation 2001, the same name of the U.S. operation in Afghanistan. So, Nanoset Technologies, I believe, was started out by Soraya Begum. I think the two Tahira Awans, are the mother and the daughter. The reason why there's two Tahira Awans at that Lorton address, I think that's just for cover so that, these Begums aren't on a list. But if it's not true, if that's not who Tahira Awan is, that's not important. I mean, we know that these two are involved. But I think these two people show kind of a shift. This was the original intent, which was to sell the drugs, illegal and also counterfeit or generic drugs, to build up to Pakistan. And this is where, unknowingly, I believe this person is unknowingly involved in routing prescriptions to certain key people in the VA system. Those are the people that those subscriptions get routed to are doing the nasty stuff. And I believe they're in Wisconsin. I believe they're in Minnesota. I believe they're in Ohio. I believe they're in Virginia, Texas, California, Arizona. So I think they're in, of all the different, Iowa is another one. I think of all the different VAs, each region, there's 10 regions in the VA, or 12 regions. There's going to be one state and one location where they do all the transplants. And that's where you're going to affect. I think it's Fort McCoy up in, and I visited all these places, Fort McCoy in Wisconsin, and then there's one in Iowa near Iowa City. It's going to be the one near Iowa City that does the transplants as well. So I think by controlling, if there's 10 regions, by controlling the 10 transplant areas, you're going to be able to control the use of the operating theaters and be able to broker those for donations. That's the working theory. Now, here's Nanoset Technologies. This is when Soraya Begum is running it. They're hacking for the first 4 years, from 2001 to 2005. They get the technology for the MRI scanner. They sell it to Biofan, to Michael Weiner. So again, I think Michael Weiner again and again is going to show up. You're going to see different hedge funds show up to collect the intellectual property. But again, you're not targeting, with death. You're not using opium targeting. I think the corporation that gets formed is this AAIT when things start turning this darker, toward this darker thing of actually targeting the VA people. This is when this AAIT is created. Of course, it's identical to the AAIT login for the Secretary of the Army. So this is going to be Walter Reed Medical Hospital in Maryland. So Anthony Weiner, I think, is very close to the Awans from 2001 to 2011 when he leaves, or 2012 when he leaves Congress. I think it gets a little bit more radicalized somehow through Huma. And as their relationship starts deteriorating, I think there's this alternative, darker motive that comes through her somehow, or through Steve Feinberg. I can't really prove that at this point, but it just, looking at the metadata, that's what the metadata is saying. Again, a lot of this will be answered if we get the serial numbers. Again, Hillary has to sign off on all of these. There's a form, or it's going to be Cheryl Mills. There's going to be serial numbers associated. Then we take the FBI reports and do a correlation to see if these are indeed those servers, and that is that modus operandi. We have Hillary's email talking about the BlackBerry emails and the BlackBerries and Anthony Weiner's trusted staff. So all we have to do is make the connection that the Awan brothers worked for Anthony Weiner, and then basically the dots are connected. The external server also, we're going to need to find that external server. These are going to have footprints as well, as I've mentioned before. There's going to be phone records for the BlackBerries, but then also there's going to be phone records because people are carrying the BlackBerry as a secure phone, as a State Department phone. But they're also carrying, let's say this is a phone that Kazir Khan's carrying. They're also carrying an iPod, and Hillary carried an iPod and not an iPod, an iPhone or an iPad. So those are going to have geolocating information. So by combining the two of these, by combining the phone, the secure phone, and the regular phone, we'll be able to know where everybody was when they were doing the server syncing. So that'll be the key data for that. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it right there. I don't want to talk to you about the iridium on the back of the trucks transmitting and BlackBerry radar. We'll get to that in the next round.